Welcome to episode 128 of Tech Sales Insights. Really excited to have Steve Layne from RedVector today. Steve, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Randy.
Excellent.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, awesome to have you. And Glen must be hanging out on the beach?
No, Glen doesn't get to go to the beach. Glen is out trying to make some numbers for us. Glen, he is hard at work in Manhattan carrying a bag around today.
All right, great job, Glen. Sounds like a big deal that we can't talk about publicly, but very exciting. Anyway, so Steve is the co-founder, chairman, and CEO of a cool earlier stage security company called RedVector. So you'll be hearing more about that. Our title topic is getting to 10 million ARR in very early markets. So certainly a lot of people fighting away there in some of these early companies. And with this economy, certainly has been a much more of a dogfight. So look forward to hearing some of those insights. And we're sponsored today by Fullcast.io, who is the go-to-market planning sponsor of Sales Community. They've got a cool integrated planning platform to help you boost sales productivity, help distribute quotas and targets, territory planning. So really help automate some of those key kind of RevOps functional areas and things that you want to do. So Fullcast, thank you. And to those that are Sales Community members, thank you as well. If you're not, Tucker will put a free link in. You can go to salescommunity.com/springfree. And you get a free membership there. So by way of introduction, Steve and I really don't know each other. Full disclosure, I'm a small investor in the company and very excited to hear it's going well. So I won't talk about the specific numbers, but that is great. Steve lives in the Philly area, more specifically Valley Forge. Besides work and family, he's into outdoor sports, hunting and fishing. And real passion is just like starting companies is starting vegetable gardens. And that sounds really exciting. And very passionate about his kids and especially Chris and Andrew that had just done the Tough Mudder, which no way I could do it. I don't know about you, but very, very cool that they did that.
Thank you. Yes. And I mean, look, not just Chris and Andrew, I have 6. So a huge shout out to all of them. Interestingly enough, they're all in sales. So they all, I guess, what did they say? The nut doesn't fall far from the tree. So awesome. Yeah, very, very proud of them all.
Excellent. Good. Off to offline. You can give me their addresses. I'll send you my book that came out pretty good. Obviously, I'm biased. And Tucker, maybe throw the book link on there as well if anybody's interested. I've got some great content in it. 90 CRO friends have some great tips and tricks as well. So jumping into the questions here, maybe talk about, it's always cool to talk about people's first job after college.
Well, let's talk about the job right sort of while I was in college that led to the first job out of college. Right. While I went to George Mason University outside of Washington, D.C., and I worked full-time and I went to school full-time. And my job was I was a car salesman. I worked at a Volkswagen dealership in Arlington, Virginia. And so I sold Volkswagens, new and used Volkswagens. And really, that's where I, in large measure, learned how to sell, right? And learn, sort of the ways and means of what it took to close a deal, if you will. And so after college, I couldn't be a car salesman. I went to, college. I had a degree in marketing. And so I had to go get a marketing job somewhere. So I went to work for Volkswagen, Porsche, Audi in their mid-Atlantic region as a marketing analyst. And it was a fantastic experience because I worked with 70 dealerships in a 5-state region. And I also got to work with their ad agency, Doyle, Dane and Bernbach, famous New York Madison Avenue ad agency, where I was very early on in my career, I was schooled in something called the psychographics of the automobile purchaser, which has served me extremely well in my sales career in terms of understanding the psychology of why people buy and why they buy certain things. And so, yeah, that was out of college.
Wow, very cool. So on that, any maybe one or two tips or insights that you used with that experience into that correlates over to tech and what you're doing now?
Well, one of the things is, so if you're familiar with, like, for instance, the Myers-Briggs test, right? Sort of a psychographic analysis of, 16 different, types of styles or personas. I could just ask somebody what kind of car they drove. And then I'd ask them about some of the options or features on the car. And that could help me immediately form a personality profile or persona of that person. I mean, very much similar. What is the name of the company that you're involved in and sponsor? Is it get a profile on somebody from LinkedIn?
Humantic AI.
Yeah, exactly. Great product, by the way. And so, that's done through AI right now. I would do that by asking somebody what kind of car they drove: 2-door, 4-door, automatic transmission, manual transmission, leather seats, pleather seats. What kind of radio did you have in the car? And I pretty much could tell who I was dealing with.
Wow, very cool. And then maybe quickly talk about your career from there, including a long time at Capgemini.
Well, so I was on a career trajectory, all planned out for me, all by the Germans. On my third anniversary, the head of HR brings me in for my annual review, takes out a ruler, has this little 30-year timeline, clicks off year 3. And, this guy, I'll never forget him, Eric Schmidt, in his German accent, said, "Steve, just keep your nose clean. And, in 2 years, you'll get to be an assistant regional parts manager for West Virginia." I was like, well, hold on a second. I mean, no, I want to be at the corner office like in 2 or 3 years, right? I want to be the region general manager, vice president. And the guy looked at me incredulously like, no, your whole career has already been planned out. All you have to do is just show up for work. That's not for me. If I wanted to do that, I would have, joined the government or the military or some more structured environment. So I literally went to the library. That's what you did in those days, right? There was no internet to look for things. You went to the library and I researched, industries in the future. And I read a fantastic article about the convergence of telecommunications and computing in the early 80s. And so I went on a hunt to find a job in telecommunications and computing, and wound up working for a company that was based out of New Jersey called GraphNet, graphic scanning, that was at the forefront of the deregulation of telecommunications. Not telephone, not voice, telex. If you remember way back, you're old enough to remember telex.
You get orders on it. Yeah,
that's right. You used to get orders on telex. It preceded facsimile. It preceded the fax machine, right? And so I went to work as a salesperson for this company called GraphNet, selling basically alternative telex services, mainly to Fortune 1000 type companies. And then, just to carry on with the interesting story, one of my customers was IBM. They had a location in Boca Raton, Florida, and their volume went from about $1,000 a month to $30,000 a month. So I immediately flew down there to find out what they were doing so I could maybe replicate it. And a guy takes me in the back and said, "Well, we're making this new IBM computer. It's called the 5150. Everything at IBM in those days had a number, right?" He goes, "But we're not going to call it the 5150. We're going to call it the PC, the personal computer." And he showed me this computer and he said, "Now what's going to be so cool about this is that other people other than IBM will be able to write programs for it." And so it was like, wow, the light bulb went off in my head. And it was like, I could turn this computer into a telex machine. And in those days, telex machines sold for $20,000. So I could buy an IBM computer, put some software in it that emulated what a telex machine did, and sell it for $10,000. And so my brother and I, my brother was a programmer. He was just coming out of college with a degree in computer programming. He wrote the software. I sold it. And then very quickly that sort of evolved into electronic mail. And we sold that first company in 1987 to a division of GTE, General Telephone and Electronics, that became part of Sprint. So, yeah.
Awesome. And then maybe kind of quickly go through from there.
Habitual entrepreneur. I mean, I've been a part of 7 startups. This particular journey I'm on started in 2015 at Lockheed Martin. Some friends of mine called and said, "Steve, great opportunity to come in and help us run or build a startup under the umbrella of Lockheed Martin." They were being called upon, as were many other defense contractors in that 2013, 14, 15 timeframe, to immediately get some of their cybersecurity capabilities out into the marketplace, primarily critical infrastructure. So they started up a division that was called Lockheed Martin Commercial Cyber. They acquired a company up near Boston and Foxborough, Industrial Defender, integrated that company in. And we basically built this company from zero to about $130 million in less than 2 years. It was just an unbelievably excellent, experience. Some of the best people I've ever worked for in my career. But then Lockheed spun us out. We got caught up in a big divestiture of a much larger unit that we reported into, went to another government contractor called Leidos, based in Reston, Virginia. Leidos only kept us for 2 years because they are a government contractor. They didn't want to have any commercial risk exposure. So they hired a banker, put us out for sale, and Capgemini bought us out of Paris.
Awesome. So you go small company to then end up big company because of that acquisition, had a great run at Capgemini. And then kind of what was the process in terms of going through to think up starting RedVector?
So we had a piece of technology that we originally developed at Lockheed Martin to do insider threat analytics, insider threat detection. This was all sort of around the Eric Snowden, post-Snowden timeframe. And so it was an approach to utilize, Lockheed Martin needed this for their own internal corporate use, right? They're building the F-35, they're building F-22s. They were a target of espionage by, big time nation state actors, right? And so they needed a way to find, potentially, embedded spies within the organization. So they developed this software platform that it didn't just look at cyber related data. It also looked at other behavioral indicators of human behavior. So HR information, scanning for open source public records like arrest warrants or, criminal charges. It brought it all into a big data lake, ran a lot of interesting machine learning algorithms on it, and then produced risk scores so that corporate security could go and try to mitigate in advance of an event happening, right? It's like, look, Steve, we see these things happening. Your risk score is going on. What's happening, right? Because in many cases, there's life stressors, financial issues, family issues, bad work environment issues, lack of training that are precursors to ultimately these, in many cases, catastrophic events like sabotage, workplace violence, fraud, theft. And so this piece of technology was a fantastic piece of technology. We immediately sold it to 8 major organizations. Then we got caught up in sort of a freeze by being spun out to this other company. They didn't want to invest in anything, and they were services businesses. They weren't product companies. So Capgemini, really a service-oriented company, didn't know what to do with some of these software assets. And so myself and a few others, Glen, my co-founder, he was not at Capgemini at the time, but he was my AI expert. He was at Data Robot, and he was also my risk modeling expert because he had spent 14 years at Moody's Analytics. So that convergence of analytics and AI, he had the handle on. And so I left and we acquired the software, we acquired the customers, and off we went to the races. So that was a little over a year and a half ago.
Awesome. So then, you kind of are, not that you didn't have any work left to do, but you kind of, it's a startup, but you kind of started on the 50-yard line because you already had a product, you already had product market fit, you already had customers.
Correct.
So it's kind of cheating, but it's great.
Come on.
Great way to do it, right? It makes so much sense for sure.
You make it sound so easy, right? Maybe I don't even need salespeople. We'll just put an order form on the web, and people can just buy it.
There you go.
It's not that easy.
I think a little bit more of a heavy lift. So, so speaking of which, then kind of what is your go-to-market? How do you sell?
So we are account specific, direct, account targeted focused, right? So we're very, very deterministic in terms of who we sell this to and how we sell it to them. And quite honestly, in some cases, I tease, the guys a lot in that, we're not really selling. We're just helping people buy this, right? Our typical customer, our ideal customer profile is in most cases a chief security officer, head of risk. Certainly the chief information security officer, the CISO, has a major, vote or say in this. The CIO has a major vote and say in this. General counsel does, but it's that corporate security function with a lot of HR assistance as well, because ideally the outcome that we produce is this mitigating capability in advance. So if an employee assistance program can help this employee get some help before they go forward, and either intentionally or unintentionally, in many cases it's accidental, but it can lead to significant repercussions. So that's that. So anyway, back to directly answer your question, we're focused right now on commercial and the U.S. government. I would say it's about 50-50. When you tell some people that, as a startup, you're focused on the U.S. government, they look at you like you're crazy because of the long sales cycles, the bureaucracy, and what it takes. But it is the one market that has a mandate to do this. In 2016, President Obama issued a presidential order that all government agencies must have what is called an insider threat hub. So defense, intelligence, civil, all of them have been doing this capability of looking for insider threats. The problem is they do it manually. It's not automated. And so what our solution does is automates this, and it dramatically optimizes and increases the efficacy of their programs. So the U.S. government, market A, market one. The other market is critical infrastructure, as defined by the Department of Homeland Security. So DHS has defined 16 sectors as critical to our nation's sustainability: financial services, transportation, energy, utility, critical manufacturing. So the list goes on. We're focused right now on about 6 or 7 of those agencies, and we're even then more focused on the more mature organizations that are actively out, trying to, protect both their employees and their critical assets.